Good morning, you guys. Welcome back to another video. So for today, we are going to do a yearly wrap up of every single book that I read this year in 2022. I read 40 books, which is actually insane. I've never read that many books in my life. Filmed this yesterday and it was kind of disorganized and it was super long. So I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet and go through every book that I read in order. I have my book stack here of all of my books. You can't really see them that well because I'm sitting on the floor. But we're going to go through every single one. I'll tell you guys my favorites, what I didn't like. So be sure to let me know in the comments what your favorite books are, whether or not you hit your goals for 2022, what your goals are for 2023. And without further ado, let's get started. Since I have my Kindle here, because the first book that I read this year was an ebook, I'll give you guys a little Kindle update. I am loving it. I've read like 2 or 3 books on it already, and I like it so much better than my Fire tablet because it's smaller. I think the quality is better, especially if you just want it for books. And that is my update. Getting into the first book that I read this year, I read a murder mystery book for my book club. This was Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. That was the first Agatha Christie book that I've ever read because, like I said, normally I do not read murder mystery books. But I thought it was pretty well done. She's like very popular in this genre. I'm pretty sure she's like the OG author in it. She has so many books. Moving to my book wall, the next series of books that I read, it was actually a series, was my Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Literally my favorite read of this year, hands down. My top book for this year would probably be A Court of Mist and Fury, but I have an entire video on my YouTube channel where I talk about the whole series and it's spoiler free, so I'll link it up here if you guys want to know like all of my thoughts. Moving to the next book I read, this was end of February, beginning of March. This was another book club book. This was Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm sure that you guys have heard of it. If you're looking for a good self-help book that will actually change your life, this is it right here. And I really like that he uses science literature to back up all of the points that he has in here. It was really interesting. I have definitely applied it to my own personal life, especially when it comes to my morning routine. I think this is the first and only book that I tapped this year actually, because there's just so many good things in here and I would definitely recommend. I rated this 5 stars. Then the next book I read was actually a reread for me. It was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, a true classic, and I don't have it with me because one of my friends is still borrowing it. If you haven't read it, would definitely check it out or just watch the movie because I love the movie. Keira Knightley, Mr. Darcy, can I say more? It's just a classic. And then after that, I read Throne of Glass, continuing on my Sarah J. Maas kick. I wanted to see what this whole series was about, and I don't really remember most of it, so I think I'm going to end up starting it over and if I get to it in 2023. I wasn't as impressed with this one because this was written way before she wrote ACOTAR, so I think just the level of writing wasn't as good when you compare it to ACOTAR. Moving into April, I read The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. First of all, look at the cover of this. Isn't it just beautiful? And it has like that soft cover. It's just very satisfying. But I love this book. It is a rom-com. It's like a young adult, very clean book. It takes place in Martha's Vineyard. The story is so adorable and I just love the characters in here. There's also a lot of Taylor Swift quotes in here. Another April book, I read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was actually a book club book and I just love this. First of all, for the cover, it looks like it could be a coffee table book. Taylor Jenkins Reid is an incredible writer. I really like this. This was 5 stars for me. I like this one better than The 7 Husbands, which is probably an unpopular opinion because I know so many people love that book, but I really like the story in here. I like the fact that it is a little bit of a mystery as you're trying to figure out like what happens at the party, and it also has dual POVs between like the parents' relationship and then you have all of the siblings in here as well, so it was a really cool read. Moving to the next book I read, this was Darling Girl by Liz Michelson. This is actually a retelling of the story of Peter Pan and it's a dark retelling. I did not like this book. I rated it probably like 2.5 stars. I didn't think the story was there and it was very toxic. And I honestly just would not recommend reading this book. Then the next one I read was actually a book that I read from like January to May because this was a Bible study that I did at my church with a group of girls. This was Annie F. Downs' Looking for Lovely, Collecting the Moments That Matter, and this is the Bible study version, but she does have like a normal book that you can go through and read if you don't want to do the Bible study. I love Annie Downs because she is single, and a lot of like Christian self-helpy books, the authors are married and talk about their kids and their husbands, which is really nice if you're into that. but as a single girl myself, it's just hard to relate to, so I really like that about this book. And this Bible study in particular is focused on a verse in Romans 5, and I just really like the way that she explains the Bible and like brings everything together. It's very easy to understand, so definitely recommend checking this out. Then the next series of books I read were the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy, written by Jenny Han, and these are young adult summer romance. It's actually a love triangle between the main character Belly and the two brothers. This also takes place in Massachusetts on like a small beach town, and these books are so cute. I wanted to read them before the show came out, and I'm so glad that I did. I think the show did it really good justice. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about the whole series and my thoughts on the show. If you guys want to check that out, I'll link it up here. But yeah, these are super cute if you're looking for like a good, clean, young adult romance read. Then the next book that I read was actually outside of my comfort zone as well. It was like very different from books that I normally read, but I'm so happy that I read it because it was 5 stars. This was How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. And this is like a nutrition book, which is kind of random, but I was recommended to read this from a podcast I was listening to, and I'm so happy that I did. This book talks about the top 10 ways to die and how eating different foods impacts your body. And I think honestly this is a book that everybody should read because he does a great job of explaining like how your body functions and how different foods affect different systems in your body. And it's just super easy to understand. He also uses a ton of like scientific studies and literature to back up everything that he's saying in here, which I really liked. I'm so excited to talk about this next book because it literally has my whole heart. Probably my top 2 books that I read this year. This is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I love this book so much. I think the main character is so relatable. It's fake dating between a professor and a master's degree student, or she's getting her PhD. I don't remember which one it is, but it's a rom-com. It's hilarious. You're gonna die of laughter. There is some spice in here, so it's just something to keep in mind. Then the next book I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This book is a very popular book, but honestly, it wasn't my favorite. I don't know if it's just this particular Emily Henry book because I have book lovers in my room that I need to read still, but I didn't really think it was like worth the hype, I guess. But this was 4 stars for me. I think there was really good character development in here. I know a lot of people like it because it's like 2 authors and they have a romance together. It's like a forced proximity, friends to lovers dating situation. So if you like that book, I would definitely recommend if you haven't read this yet. And then the next book that I read was Who Are You Following by Sadie Robertson Huff. I actually follow her on Instagram, and I would say she's a pretty big role model for me. This is a Christian self-help book. I'm really glad that I read it. I actually read it when we were on vacation in the Keys, which is so sad because now I want to go back. But I think the message in this book is so good. It's all about how you are pursuing Jesus in a social media obsessed world, and she has really good reflection questions in here. I actually like answered all of them and kept them in a journal as I was reading it, and I just think what she has to say is really important. This was one of those books where I was walking around Target and I saw it and I was like, I just need to buy it because I know I want to read it, and I'm so happy that I did. Moving back to the Kindle, the next book that I read was actually a book club book, and this book surprised me because I honestly didn't think I was gonna like it, but I rated it 5 stars, and I think it won like Book of the Year or something on Goodreads. This was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. And this book takes place in the 60s. She's this chemist, and she ends up going on the show where she's teaching her viewers how to cook and talking about science at the same time. The way that the plot was written, it was just like super interesting. A very unique storyline in my opinion, and I really liked it, so that was 5 stars. Then the next book I read I actually don't have because I borrowed it from a friend. This was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I rated this 3.5 stars. This was again kind of outside of my comfort zone because I don't read a lot of like mystery books, but this is very teeny boppy. I think it's more geared towards like a high school, middle school kind of audience. It gave me a lot of like Pretty Little Liars, Nancy Drew vibes. Just like looking at my review, trying to figure out what I'm gonna say, and I have all in caps, the dog, he deserved better. So if you know, you know, I guess. I think we've reached the point of like summer or August or sometime between that, but the next book that I read was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. If you guys follow Haley Pham, this is like her favorite rom-com book ever, and I wanted to read this earlier in the year, but it was so popular that it was back ordered everywhere, so I had to like wait forever to get this book. But it was so cute, did not disappoint. This was a 5-star read for me. I honestly wish that I could read it again. In the beginning of every chapter, she has a quote from an iconic like 90s rom-com film, which I really liked. She also has a cute illustration in here. It's so cute. She has a couple of other books that she released that I want to read. Like I think the next one is called The Do-Over. And even just like look at the back of the book, and he's also holding up a boombox. I'm now remembering this was the time of my life I was like really in my romance era of reading books. I actually think I have that YouTube video on my channel. I'll link it up here if you guys want to go check it out. But the next book that I read was Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This was a 5-star read for me. I loved it so much. I think the story was so well done, and the romance between the two of them was really great. This is like a friends to lovers coming of age book, a second chance romance. You get to see the main characters become friends, and then you see how their friendship develops and how they fall in love with each other, and then something happens and they don't see each other for 10 years, so you're getting like the perspectives of them from when they're 30 years old, which I really liked because that's close to my age, and then like them growing up and through high school and everything. And I'm pretty sure I cried at the end of it. It was so good. That was 5 stars for me. Moving into the next book that I read, it was actually a book series, and I did read them at separate times, but I'm just going to talk about it at once because I have them here. This was the Once Upon a Broken Heart book series by Stephanie Garber, and then I have the second one here that just came out recently. It was The Ballad of Never After. These are fantasy romance books, and fantasy romance is like my first love of a genre, so I really wanted to read these. And honestly, if you guys like the Vampire Diaries, I think you would love these books because I got Vampire Diaries vibes from here. The world in here is really cool. I wasn't as impressed with the first one. I rated that 3 stars, I think 3.5 stars. But I rated the second one 4 stars because the plot really develops in here. And I have this theory with like fantasy books that the second book is where it's at, because that happened to me with The Cruel Prince and even like ACOTAR and this one. And I just love the character Jackson here. He's the main character lead, and there's like a prophecy in here with the main character. There's like witches and vampires, and it's like all of the fantasy things, and I really liked it, so I would definitely recommend checking it out. Then the next book that I read was an ebook, and this was Divergent by Veronica Roth. This was a book club book that I read, and surprisingly, I haven't read the Divergent series yet. I don't think I'm going to continue with it because I don't know, I don't really have an interest in reading the rest of them. But I definitely rewarded myself by watching the movie after I read the book, and I thought the movie did the first book pretty well justice, which was surprising because normally movies mess up the plot lines in the books. Moving into October, the next book that I read was a Halloween read for me. This was House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin Craig. And I remember at this time of year I was in a really bad book slump, so I just wanted to give this book a chance because one of my friends had recommended it to me, and it was super interesting. I believe it's like a retelling of some like story. It's like 12 sisters, and all of the sisters, like the oldest one, like they all keep dying off, and the main character in here is one of the middle sisters, and she's trying to figure out like what happened the whole time. And it's kind of creepy. Well, I'm not gonna say kind of because it was creepy, as they were literally seeing dead people in this book. But I rated it 3.5 stars. I would definitely add it to your list if you are looking for more like Halloween October books to read. Then the next book I read was another ebook. This was another book club book. This was The Witch Collector by Charissa Weeks. Next to the Darling Girl book would probably be this book because I didn't really like it. The story didn't catch me that much, which was surprising because it is a fantasy romance book. I had to force myself to finish it. And then the next book that I read was when I was kind of on my like, I don't know, maybe I want to get back into the dating world game. This is The Sacred Search by Gary Thomas. This is a Christian book, and the whole premise is what if it's not about who you marry but why? And I think I rated it 3 stars. He does have some good things in here to say, but overall, as like an overarching thought, I didn't agree with a lot of what he said. So I actually bought a separate book that I have on my TBR for 2023 that's supposed to be a lot better for that kind of thing. It's called The Meaning of Marriage by Timothy Keller. Let me know if you guys have read this book. I hear it's really good. It has like almost 5-star rating on Goodreads, so I'm super excited. And then the next couple of books that I read are actually ebooks. This was another book club book, which kind of surprised me because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. It's a retelling of the story of Agamemnon and the kidnapping of Helen from Sparta. And if you guys have read the Song of Achilles, I think I would recommend checking this out because it surprised me how much I liked it. This is Electra by Jennifer Saint. Electra is actually the daughter of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, and Clytemnestra is the sister of Helen of Sparta, so it talks about like their whole stories. There's 3 different perspectives from Clytemnestra, Electra, and then this other person, this other girl, I don't remember her name, but she is on like the Sparta side of things. She, I believe, is like a prophet. She has visions, but it was super interesting and I was surprised by how much I liked it. Continuing on with the ebooks, and now we're getting into like cozy fall vibes of reading. I found my favorite author, Becky Monson. She writes incredible ebooks, would definitely recommend you guys check her out. This one was called Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice. I ate this book up. This was 5 stars for me. And it's a strangers to lovers Grumpy Sunshine read. And this was the first Grumpy Sunshine that I have ever read, and I realize it's maybe a trope that I enjoy now, which was really fun. But it actually takes place on like a pumpkin patch farm, and there's a companion novel which I read next called A Pumpkin in a Patch by Jennifer Peel. And I love this one too. I liked it probably better than the Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice book, but this was a romance between a single dad and then the girl is the cousin to the main character that's in Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice, if that's not confusing, because their moms are friends, so they literally call them the sisters, and I just think that's hilarious. They are both rom-coms and they take place during the fall, so very cozy fall vibes. But she is actually ends up being the teacher of his daughter, and they have like this whole thing between them where she's been like avoiding him for years and like has to face her fears of seeing him, and they fall in love, and it's just like, it's so cute. I would definitely recommend you guys check this one out. I ate it up. Then I read another Becky Monson book because I wanted to read more of her books, and this one wasn't one of my favorites. It was really sad. This was The Accidental Text by Becky Monson, and it's a story about this girl. Her mother passes away, and to get closure she starts texting her mom's phone number, but then the phone number gets reassigned to this handsome guy that they end up meeting, and they end up falling in love and bonding over a ton of things. And the ending was really sad, so if you do decide to read it, definitely bring tissues. But it wasn't my favorite because I thought from the description it was going to focus a lot more on the romance, but it's very heavy on grief. Moving into November, the next book that I read was November 9 by Colleen Hoover, and this was the only Coho book that I read this year. I don't know how that happened, but I actually read this on November 9th, and I have a whole reading vlog of this. I'll link it up here if you guys want to go check it out and hear my thoughts. But this was 4 stars for me. Back to my Kindle. Now we're getting more current because these are books that I like recently read, and these are all Kindle Unlimited books, by the way. I read Twisted Love by Anna Huang next, and this book series is very popular on Bookstagram. I think like the books themselves are like actually beautiful. I don't have any copies because I read it on my Kindle, but this is the first one, Twisted Love, and they're very, very spicy books, so definitely 18 years and older only, you guys. Like, it's really bad. I rated this 3 stars. I kind of see what the hype is about the book series, but it wasn't my favorite. This main character, the guy, he's like super overprotective of her and honestly kind of scary as a person, and I did not like that about him. I think I'm gonna read the second one because it is a lot more popular. I think it's the second book and the 4th book are like the really, really good books, and they're all standalone, so you definitely like don't have to read all of them. They're like all in the same friend group, so like each friend has their own romance, which makes up the whole series. But it wasn't one of my favorites. Probably an unpopular opinion, but let me know if you guys have read this and what your thoughts are on it. Now getting like onto my Christmas reads. This was every book that I've read in December now. This was Baggage Claim by Juliana Smith. And I've seen this book all over Bookstagram, so I was like, it's on Kindle Unlimited, might as well check it out. and I rated it 5 stars. This book probably helped to pull me out of my book slump. It takes place in this small Christmas town in Utah, and it's a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, where the girl is the grump and the guy is like the sunshine golden retriever. And I really like the story of it. Forewarning though, I'm pretty sure in the book she has an eating disorder, so if that's something you're sensitive to, I would definitely keep that in mind. And then the next book that I read was another Becky Monson book, also on Kindle Unlimited. It was How to Ruin the Holidays. Rated this one 5 stars as well. I just love the way that she writes her books. It just makes me laugh. Also, the first line in here is literally, I like to rage crochet. And me and my friends were talking about how we want to learn how to crochet at our last book club meeting. So I just thought it was a perfect fit, and it's just so funny. I really adored the romance in here, and it takes place in this small Christmas town. She is a realtor and the guy is like the town fix-it man, and she ends up like having to save the town, and they like have a romance between the two of them, and it was really cute. I would definitely recommend checking it out if you need a good Christmas book read. Seriously, Becky is like so underrated. I really like her books. I definitely want to check out more of them. And the book that I'm currently reading actually is the companion novel to this How to Ruin the Holidays book. It's called The Holiday X-Files, again written by Jennifer Peel. It seems like the two of them like to tag team with these kinds of books. It hasn't grabbed me so far. I'm only in chapter 7, so I'm hoping it gets better. It's a very like cheesy rom-com Christmas book, and this will probably be the last book that I read this year other than my Bible, which I don't have with me. It's over there because I was reading it this morning, but I am counting that towards like my 40 books. I think that makes like 40 or 41 because I have been reading the Bible in a Year challenge this year, and I just did day 353 this morning, so I'm on track to finish it. So that is all of the books that I read in 2022. It was quite a lot. I apologize if this video was really long. I really tried to like get through all of them without rambling, but I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know in the comments if you read any of these books this year, what your favorites were, what's on your TBR for 2023. I haven't even thought about that yet, honestly. I hope that you guys have a great Christmas season. I just want to say thank you guys so much for all of the support that you've given me on my YouTube channel this year. We've really grown a lot, and I'm super excited for the new year and all of the new books I'm gonna read and videos I'm gonna film for you guys. So thank you so much. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and I hope that you guys have a great holiday season with your families, and I will see you in 2020.